Okay, welcome to the Underground Dhamma Podcast. My name is Juan, and I am here with Joanna. Hello, Joanna.
Hello.
Hi. This is a podcast where, me and Joanna are two normal individuals, and we're going to be discussing the supernormal Dhamma. We're not monastics and we're not scholars, but we do have some supernormal teachers. We read the sutras, and we're fascinated by the Buddha's Dhamma. So we are discussing many topics throughout the podcast, and usually in the form of questions and just discussing the subject. And Joanna, who are your Dhamma influences? How did you get into the Dhamma?
Well, I had a coworker who I I could tell was a little bit into spirituality, and I had been wanting to learn how to meditate. So I asked her, "Do you know how to meditate?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can you teach me?" And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, did you take a class?" And she's like, "Yeah." And do I have to pay? How much is it? No, it's free. And I was like, oh my God, can I go? And she said, of course.
Yeah.
And then that's how I went to the North Hollywood Sarathchandra temple.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where I learned how to meditate. And then after my first meditation session, I was so I felt so peaceful. Like my experience was so positive that I knew, like, I feel like intuitively I knew I had found like a pot of gold. And I was like so curious and I wanted to know more because I just had a feeling that there was something really, really important and special when it came to meditation and the
Yes.
teachings. I wanted to know, how did these monks know that? How did they know? How, how, I was like, what is this? I
Yes.
want to know more. So then, yeah, that's how I started learning.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's where we actually met at the Sarathchandra Buddhist Center.
Oh, wait, can I tell a story about how when I first heard you speak of the Dhamma?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so after my first time going to the temple, I was so curious and I had such a positive experience with my meditation. I feel like every time I meditated, I could tell right away. I felt so much better. My body was relaxed. Like mentally, my mind was not racing anymore. I was able to like calm my mind and my body. And I could tell right away that, maybe if I could, I thought maybe if I could keep practicing, it could get better and I could feel
Hmm.
better. So, and then one day, so after the meditation, they would have a discussion. And in the beginning, I didn't really understand what these discussions were for, but I was fascinated because they would say, I remember the monks, Bante Colita, he once said something, and what I heard him say had, like, as soon as I heard him say this one statement, I can't say exactly how he said it, but it was something along the words of, when you see someone, don't really focus on how seeing this person makes your mind react and your
Yes.
body. So when he said that, I was like, what?
Yes.
And I kept thinking about it. And then I realized that he was trying to teach me to become aware of how my mind reacts to any visual stimuli.
Yes, exactly.
So then I kept going to the meditation sessions and then I started looking forward to the discussions. And then one day, Juan was there and I heard him speak the Dhamma. And I tell you that the moment I heard you speak the Dhamma, I think the what you had you had presented to us, the description of the cognitive perception.
Yes, the process of perception and
Yep,
cognition.
exactly. The process of perception and
Cognition.
cognition. So I think that it really fascinated me because the way that you described it, it was like my mind just stood still and I could visualize everything you were saying and I could see it clearly in my mind
Hmm.
and it made perfect sense. And then I was like, "Oh my God, I need to become his friend because I want I want to know more." So then somehow we became friends and we love to talk about the Dhamma.
Oh, yes.
So
Sometimes.
yeah, that was the story of how I met Juan. And like sometimes we'll talk Dhamma and we'll discuss the suttas and ideas behind it, the philosophy behind it. And like 3 hours will pass by and it'll feel like 20 minutes was passed by.
Yes, it becomes akaliko, independent of time, which that means we're discussing the real Dhamma. But
Yeah.
yeah, I recall what you mean about Bhante Kalita, what he mentioned. He always, because that's what the teachings of the Buddha is trying to do. Is because normally every normal individual out there, they're all paying attention to the object of perception, as opposed to the reaction of the organism from that perceiving that object. So everyone's normally looking outside, and that's how the emotions get stirred up because we're unconscious of what's our reaction inside, and everyone stays focused on the object outside, whether it's a pretty girl, a handsome man, a driver that cut you off, a long line where someone's paying with a check instead of like a debit card, and they're taking a long time. These are the objects that normally people are perceiving and they're focusing on, and because they're paying attention to that outside object, they're unaware of the unconscious process that's happening inside. And Bhante Kalita, he's our teacher. He's one of our supernormal teachers. If they're now with our Bhante Punaji, who was our one of our teachers who passed away. Now that he's gone, Bhante Kalita, he's our light as of right now. He's our light in explaining the Dhamma to us. But he would always say that you have to, instead of looking at the object outside, pay attention to the reaction that's happening inside, the reaction in the body, the reaction with the feeling, the reaction with the emotion, and the reaction with the cognitive interpretation. And I think that's what you're talking about. He was explaining, right?
Yes, exactly. Because I had never met anyone. I mean, I have never really had the opportunity of meeting someone who was a master of awareness. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what he does. He practices all his life, like how to maintain awareness. And I wanted to learn how to do that. And basically, that's what the teachings, the Buddhist philosophy and teachings that is what they show you.
Yes, definitely. And you're right. He is a master of awareness, at least from our years of going to the temple. That's the behavior we observe in him. And he always brings it up when people, there's always new people going to the temple, and they're always going to be asking the same question people ask when they're new to the temple, and it's how much should we be meditating? How long? So they usually mean like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. Like how long should it be? 30 minutes? And Bhante Kalita always gives them the same answer, which is from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. This is how long you should be meditating. And that's what the Buddha taught. That's how you'll get into the deeper states of meditation, into the jhanas of samadhi. So yes, he is a master of awareness. And as far as like when you heard me describe the process of perception, it made sense because the Dhamma is described as well expressed in words, suakato, bhagavata dhammo, which means that we're talking about experience here, and you can see experience. Everybody can see experience for themselves. That's why it's also called ehipasiko, which is within experience, that you can see it yourself, verifiable. And so what I discuss is how we're all organisms, and we all have the senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body. And at each sense, there's nerve receptors, specialized nerve receptors that get triggered by certain stimulation in the environment. And so when this gets stimulated, these nerve receptors send a signal up the nerve cells all the way up the spinal cord into the brain, where it is these sensations get perceived. And they usually, we construct an image using these sensations, and we perceive, and then we interpret our perception with this cognitive interpretation. Once we put all the senses, the six senses, including the mental activity, the cognitive portion of this process, that's how experience happens for all organisms, especially the human beings, which we're discussing now. And then from then on, once our cognitive interpretation takes place, then there's a feeling attributed to that interpretation. Someone will interpret one sensation as pain, someone will interpret it as pleasure. And based on your interpretation, there's a feeling that comes about, and based on that feeling, there's usually an emotion. If we're unconscious of that feeling, then there's an emotional reaction. And then from that emotional reaction, we usually personalize this emotion as mine. I'm angry, I'm lustful, I'm scared. Whatever the emotion is, we'll personalize it as ours, myself. And from that, we'll create an idea that there's existence, because once we're personalizing and bringing the I into being, that means there's an existence at that point. And when there's an existence, we're personalizing this organism, basically this body. And the body has a past, which is birth, and the body has a future, which is death, and the body has a present, which is the aging process. And now that we are this body, we're thinking that we are this body. Now we're plagued with birth, aging, sickness, and death. And this is what causes all the suffering. And this is like the paticca samuppada, the normally called dependent origination, but we call it the antecedental concurrence, because it is a series of antecedents, one before the other, but it's all happening concurrently, all at once.
Wait. The paticca samuppada.
That's correct. And you know this, right?
I've heard of it many times. I can't always remember how to pronounce it, but yes, I remember it. But I know it's very, very important.
Yes. The Buddha said that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you explain why it's so important?
Absolutely. The reason it's important is because, the traditional way of understanding this paticca samuppada teaching is that they explain it as three lives. The first portion is the past lives, the second portion is birth, and then the future. But we just said that the Dhamma is akaliko. It's independent of time, so that's a wrong translation, improper translation. What it's actually doing, this teaching, is explaining how the organism constructs the world, the self, and all the suffering. So once there's only experience, but at the point of the cognitive interpretation, experience gets split into the objective experience, which we see as the world outside, and the subjective experience, which we call the self, myself. And once this experience gets split, we alienate the objective experience, which we call the world out there, and we personalize the subjective experience that we call myself.
Wait, when you get split, what is it that makes us split these two different worlds, pretty much?
Yes.
Is it because of the way it's raised?
You said, is it because of the what? I'm sorry?
What is it that makes us split objective from subjective? You said these viewpoints split.
Yes.
I guess it's just the natural process of our perception, right? Of our biological way of things.
Yes, I mean, if we think about the organism that evolved over millions of years, this process of evolution wants the organism to survive and to go on to pass on its genes to procreate. And what it does is that in order to do that, it has to help us construct the world in a way that will lead to those goals, which is survival and procreation, to pass on the genes. So and then another reason we split it is not just because the evolution is programming us to see it that way, but also like when someone touches you, you have a feeling and you think this feeling is mine. But when you touch the chair outside or another person outside, you don't have that feeling. So you say, that's why you say the subjective portion is mine, because I can experience that feeling. But if I touch someone else, I can't experience the feeling they're experiencing. So you say it's out there, it's the world. So you personalize the subjective experience, which you can experience, and you alienate the experience that you can't experience subjectively, if that makes sense.
Can you say the last sentence one more time?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when someone touches you, you get the that process of perception happens, and when you touch someone else, you don't have the same experience. You don't feel the pain or pleasure that they feel. So you say that's objective out there. It's not mine. It's the world, part of the world it's not me.
Yeah.
And this is what happens, because in the cognitive process, what you're doing is you're forming objects. The way you form an object is by using the six senses. Like if you ever see a baby, what do the baby do? They put everything in their mouth, and they touch everything, and they love listening to everything, because they're with these six senses, they're forming objects. Because when a baby is born, they don't see objects. They think the mom is part of themselves. Sigmund Freud called it similar to the oceanic experience. And that's why Freud, when people told him about mystical experiences like of jhana and meditation, deep meditation, how you see that you're one with the universe, he called it a regression into the infantile state, because he says that the baby also, this is how he experiences the world. But once the baby is getting more information through the senses, it's starting to create an object. And like you yourself, if you're holding your phone right now.
Yeah.
The only reason we can isolate an object called the phone is because, one, your nerve cells in your hands are getting information. So you're creating the object with your sense of touch. And then you might be able to hear me out of your phone. So you're creating the object out of your sense of hearing. And then, if the phone might have some sort of smell, and it might look a certain way. So you're creating the object with these senses. There is no object. You're just creating it with your six senses. So in these six senses, they come together, because remember the five senses send the information up the spinal cord to the brain. The six senses really meet all together once it gets to the cerebral cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain, which is the newest part of the brain. And at that point is when we create this object. And because we create this object, that helps us survive. If you know that, one object is food, one object is like a lion that's about to eat you, like creating these objects is what helps us navigate through the world to survive. But part of this process is that we think it's not ourselves. And so we think it's the external world, the objective experience. But like I explained to you, it's really just the information that we're getting through our six senses. So it's really not a world out there. The objective experience is really part of your subjective experience as well.
So it's all subjective.
It's all subjective. It's actually both. You can say both. The object is subjective and the subject is objective. Like it's that's why the Buddha is called the Tathagata. Tathagata means tat means that. And the Hindus, the Hindu tradition has a phrase called tat twam asi. Tat, it means that. Twam is are or is, and asi is am or is. Like, I am that, or I am.
That's me.
What was that?
I am that, and that is me.
Exactly. Tat twam asi. But that came from the word tathagata, which tat is, we already said that. That is why a baby, some of the first words, and this is what I learned first from Alan Watts many years ago when my first real introduction to the Dhamma. He said that a baby says da, 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 da. It's pointing to everything as da, da. And that fathers flatter themselves because they think that the baby's saying dada. But they're really just pointing to that, because everything that we perceive as the world, the object, is that. Mm-hmm. And then the Buddha is called the Tathagata because tat, that, and then the second word portion can be translated in two ways. It could be agata or gata. Gata means like gone, and agata means has come. One is to go, one is to come. And so you can think of it as gone to that or come to that. But either way, you're realizing that the subject is really object. The objective is really subjective. And if we want to translate Tathagata in simple words, we call it the realized one, the one who has realized reality.
And has realized that everything is subjective.
Yeah. That's why he can no longer get fooled. He corrected his thinking process because he no longer can get fooled by the object into thinking it's something outside of his own process of perception.
I think it's so, one of the things that really fascinated me about Buddhism is that the more I learn about it, the more I realize it's all proven through science. And I think the fact that I had the opportunity to take biology courses, chemistry and science classes in college and high school, I know, like, I understand the science behind it because I've studied it and I understand it, and it rings true because I've studied biology, I've studied science, so I know what they're talking about is true and it makes sense to me and it's clear. But it just fascinates me that this information was basically this philosophy or this
comprehension. Yeah,
comprehensions were explained by the Buddha himself 2,000 years ago in his Suttas. Yeah. How is it that who existed 2,000 years ago understood biology and physics better than we do now? And like some of the suttas explain physics that we still don't understand right now. Yep. And we still don't understand those suttas. We're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that really blows my mind. And I think that's what really got me hooked on the Dhamma.
Absolutely. I agree. So you say, how is it that the Buddha over 2,500 years ago, that he figured out things that we still are trying to figure out now?
Yes.
What,
Oh, wait. So Juan,
yeah.
That's why that sutta I was telling you about really interested me. The one I mentioned to you earlier.
Yeah, the one we're going to discuss.
Yes.
Yes. So we're going to discuss a sutra called the Samanya Pala Sutta, which it's basically pala means the fruits, and samana is like normally it's translated as a ascetic. Other places it's translated as a recluse, but it's someone who has given up status in society to chase or to go after something supernormal. So they've given up the normal to go after something supernormal, and they're not.
Samanya Akala?
I think the second word is Phala. Pala
Oh, Samanya Pala.
Sutta. That's correct. Because pala
Samanya.
is like fruit, and I'm sure we're not pronouncing it correctly. Bante Kalita would probably correct us right now. But 'cause I think you're supposed to pronounce the H sound, pala. But
Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. But it means the fruit, and the fruits of being a samana, which is like the fruits of being a recluse. And in the sutta, the Buddha, that's in the long discourses of the Buddha, which is the Digha Nikaya, and that's number 2 in the Digha Nikaya. So if anyone wants to look it up, you look up Digha Nikaya number 2, Samanya Pala Sutta, and that's a long sutra. But you were interested in a particular part where it's talking about mind made, which the word mind made, Joanna, it's actually 2 words, mano, maya. So mano means thinking, because the Buddha, now in English we use the word the mind, and first of all, we think that the mind is an actual object, but that's just because of the language we use and how we get spellbound by the language we use. We get hypnotized. When we're using language, we're talking about subjects and predicates. We're talking.
yeah, it manipulates us.
What was that?
It manipulates us.
Absolutely. And that's why Alan Watts used to say that's why they call it spelling, because it puts a spell on you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we use the word the mind, and we think, because we put the word the mind, we think it's an actual object, but there is no such thing as the mind. There is no object called the mind. But here we are using the mind, and especially when we're reading the sutras or translations or translating the sutras, they just use the mind willy-nilly, put it on different words. But the Buddha the Buddha, instead of calling the mind an object, he used 3 different Pali words to describe the activities of what we call the mind, because the mind is not an object, it's actually an activity. So it's similar to when a car is running. That activity of the car running is not an object, it's an activity based on many different processes. So there are 3 main processes that the Buddha described as activities of the mind. And the first is the perception. He used the word vijnana. Vijnana normally, traditionally, thanks to a lot of the commentaries, many years after the time of the Buddha, hundreds of years, they called the vijnana, especially when about 150 years ago, they started translating the sutras into English. They called vijnana consciousness, but it's really perception. If we're going to use scientific psychological terms, it's perception. Now, if you go to any college and you take a course in psychology, they're going to teach you the theory of perception. That's the start, because you learn you learn about nerve cells, what a nerve cell is, the different parts of the cell. You got the axons, the nucleus body, the dendrites that send the chemicals to stimulate that get stimulated. So they teach you about how a nerve cell works and what an action potential is, and how that means sending an electrical signal, which is really a electrochemical signal. And that all leads to this process of perception. So the Buddha, for vijnana, he was talking about perception. That's the first activity of this process we called mind. The second word that he uses is mano. Mano, here he's talking about the cognitive part, the cognitive activity of the mind, where it interprets what is being perceived. And, there's a famous saying in the Dhammapada, in the first verse, Mano Pubangama Dhamma. Mano means thinking, Pubangama means precedes or comes before, and Dhamma means experience. So thinking precedes experience. And then it goes, Manosetta, manomaya. Manosetta means it's led by thinking, and manomaya, it means it's created by thinking. So mano, what we were discussing about that sutra, Digha Nikaya number 2, it says mind-made body, mano maya kayo. Kaya is the body. And so mano means created by thinking, a body created by thinking. So that's the second activity that the Buddha called the mind. The third one is called citta. And citta I've seen translated as consciousness as well. It's kind of crazy. But citta is part of the mood. It's really the mood. And the mood can be tranquil, or the mood can be emotional, which means that it's disturbed, it's moving, emotion. So the citta means the mood, and whether that's agitated mood or a tranquil, still mood. And so those are the three activities. And yeah, manomaya is talking about the thinking, created by thinking.
Okay, so I just want to go over those words. There was 3 of them.
Yes.
Vinaya?
Vijnana.
Vijnana, sorry.
Yep.
Vijnana, mano, and then the third one was
Citta.
citta.
That's C-I-T-T-A.
Hold on a second.
Anytime you have a C, it sounds like a CH sound.
Vijnana, mano, and citta.
That's right.
Mano, it means to think.
Yep, the thinking activity.
Vijnana is perception, right?
That's correct.
And then citta is
The mood.
or the feeling.
The feeling definitely has to do with it, because the feeling is what bridges the thinking to the mood.
The mood or the feeling. Okay.
But feeling is Vedana. So feeling has its own word.
Oh, Vedana.
Yes.
Okay.
Remember, when the Buddha talked about the process of perception, he used the phrase Panca Khanda. And Pancha means 5. Khanda means, normally it's translated as aggregate, but it's just like the
5 aggregates?
Yeah, that's what how Panca Khanda is normally translated. In our Bhante Punaji, our teacher, he called it a constituent, because a constituent is a portion of it, of this process of perception. And there's five constituents of this process of perception. It is rupa, which is the image. Normally, rupa is called the body, but that's because we think that people are fooled by the image, thinking that it's physical. But it's really just a bunch of sensations you constructed in the nervous system to create a picture. But people think it's...
So you're saying that the word rupa just means image?
That's correct.
The image that we create of the body? Or the image of everything in general?
Everything in general. Like if when you look at the car, it's just a picture. You're an artist, right?
Yeah.
So you start out with a blank canvas, right?
Yeah.
And you use different colors to do what?
To create an image.
That's correct. But it's really just different colors.
I'm manipulating colors so that you can think that there's something there, but it's just a form of blotched and messed up colors that I manipulated to look like something that I wanted you to think is real, but it's not.
Exactly. And that's what's happening with our visual perception.
That's very interesting.
And then
so Bhante Punaji described the 5 aggregates, which is the Panca Khanda, as the constituents of perception, and there's 5 of them, right?
Yes, the constituents of the process of perception. Because remember, these aren't objects or physical existing things. These are activities. So it's a process.
Okay. So number 1 is rupa,
Rupa,
the image.
which is the image. That's correct.
Number 2 is
Number 2 we already mentioned, which is Vedana. And what was Vedana?
feeling.
Feeling. That's correct. Luckily, normally traditional translations still call it feeling. So that's the good news.
Okay. And then how about the third one?
The third one is Sanya. S-A-N-N-A. And the N has a little, I think they call it like a tilde over it, that little line. So Enya. See, in Spanish, Enya. So
I've heard Sanya, but what does it mean?
Well, normally it's translated by the original translators. The traditional translation is, they call it perception. But the problem is perception has a more of a cognitive aspect to it. But sanya is just really the color, the sensation. It means sensation. So what's the sensation when in the visual process is the color. The color is something simple. So it's a sensation.
Oh, okay. So sanya means sensation.
Yes.
Not perception, sensation.
That's right. And you'll probably get into debates with people who have read the sutras and using the traditional translations.
Okay, and how about number 4?
Number 4 is sankara. And that's normally translated as formations or something. Sometimes it's called volitions. But it really just means construction, a mental construction. So sankara is using the sensations and the feelings like bricks in order to construct. And there's 3 types of constructions. There's a mental construction, verbal construction, and bodily construction.
Okay.
And each type of construction has two bricks that it uses. Basically, we can think of it. The mental construction is using sensation and feeling. That's the mental construction, sensation and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The verbal construction is, by the way, sensation is sanya, feeling is vedana. So it's that's the mental construction. You can call it mano sankara or chitta sankara. I've seen it both ways in the sutras. But it's basically just talking about the mental construction. The second type of construction is called vachi sankara. Vachi, kind of like vacha. That means speech, the verbal portion, the verbal construction. And the verbal...
Oh, is this 5?
I'm sorry?
Is this number 5?
No.
The 5th?
This is still part of number 4, which is sankara.
Okay, you said sankara is a mental construction which has three bricks: mental, verbal, and bodily constructions.
Yes.
And each has 2.
No, three constructions, and each construction you can think of it as having 2 bricks for each construction.
Okay. So mental, verbal, and bodily. Mental has 2 bricks, which are sensation and feeling. Sensation is also known as sadhana.
Sanya.
Oh, sorry. Sanya. And then feeling is also known as vedana.
Yes, is the Pali is Vedana.
Okay, and then you were mentioning the second construction, which is a verbal. It has 2 bricks, and what are those 2 bricks?
In Pali, it is vitaka and vichara. So vitaka means answering, literally answering, which a better word would be inferring, inference. That's vitaka. Vichara is questioning, which we can think of it as inquiry. So the verbal construction is made from inquiry and inference, asking and answering, questioning and answering. And if you think about it, we live our life with our thinking just non-stop questioning and answering. You wake up and you're like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go pee. What am I going to do? I'm going to have some coffee. What am I going to do? This. Or you're at work and you're like, what is that person thinking? He's thinking this. What did that person do to me? He's did this. You're always questioning and answering non-stop. It's kind of tiring.
True.
So that's vitaka and vichara. Then we have the bodily construction, which is the breathing in and breathing out. Now that one, I need to look up the Pali to know for sure, but it was something like asasi, pasasi, something like that. But it's similar to when we use the breathing meditation, which is anapanasati. But it's literally the inhaling and exhaling, breathing in and breathing out.
So those are the two bricks, inhaling, exhaling?
Yes, for the bodily construction.
Okay.
And then
you asasi, pasasi?
Yes. That's inhaling and exhaling, but I need to look that up. So that one we'll have to go over after.
Okay,
and then so that's the part. Those three types of constructions are the fourth constituent of the process of perception.
Of Sara.
Yes. So if you think about it, when the organism is stimulated at it through the senses, that sends a sensation to the brain, to the cortex, where it is perceived. And in between that sensation and perception, there's the sensation, the feeling, the construction. And once something is constructed, that's where now perception can perceive what is constructed. So that's why perception is the end of the process of perception. So vijnana is the fifth constituent of the process of perception, and vijnana means perception.
Like you become aware of becoming aware.
Ideally, but usually we're still unconscious of this process of perception. So you become aware that there is like a face or a flower, like just like someone's becoming aware of the image you constructed by painting on your canvas. That becoming aware is you're becoming aware like, oh, that's a flower. Oh, that's a car. But you're unaware of how this process of perception occurs. So that's what that's what this whole practice of Buddhism is. We're trying
to understand that.
Yeah, the Buddha said, he talked about panya, which is normally translated as wisdom, but we can think of it as comprehension. The Buddha discussed panya and vijnana. Vijnana is perception. And they asked one time, there's this sutra, Majjhima Nikaya number 43, which is the Mahavedala Sutta. Maha means great. Vedala, it means like the great knowledge. And this sutra is the real Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma means like the higher Dhamma. Abhi is higher. And usually, like hundreds of years after the Buddha, there was a bunch of commentators to the sutras, and people started taking those commentaries as the Abhidhamma. But the real Abhidhamma came in this sutra that occurred when Venerable Bhante was asking another Bhante. One Bhante was asking Bhante Mahasariputta, who was the chief disciple of the Buddha, the foremost in wisdom, and he was asking him a bunch of questions. And one of the questions he asked is Panya and Vijnana. Panya and Vijnana. What is the point of these two two activities, these two words, panya and vijnana, wisdom or comprehension, and perception, vijnana. And Maha Sariputta, he said, panya, comprehension, is to be developed. And vijnana, perception, it is to be comprehended. So we're supposed to develop our comprehension, and then we're supposed to comprehend perception, the process of perception.
Oh my goodness. So it's like, hold on a second.
Yeah, I know you're taking your notes.
Comprehension is to be developed. So that's how, like, in the beginning, they teach you in Buddhism, they teach you that you're supposed to cultivate your mind, cultivate positive thoughts,
Yeah.
positive habits, positive mental habits. Like, they teach you awareness to become aware of what kind of thoughts you're having on a daily basis, not just hour to hour, but minute to minute, to be aware of them, because we are creatures of habit. The habits we have now in this lifetime will tell you where you will be in the next lifetime. So if at this moment you have you are cultivating negative mental habits, it is likely that in your future life you will also be cultivating negative mental habits, which will become negative actions, negative mental thoughts, negative thoughts become negative words, which become negative actions, and they start to influence everyone around you.
Yeah.
So it all starts with thoughts. And so here it says comprehension is to be developed. So your mind is to be developed, and then your perception is to be
comprehended. That's correct. Because once you comprehend perception, the process of perception, you're no longer going to get fooled by that picture that you created. Because we're constantly being fooled by the picture, and that's why we get agitated and emotional, because we take it as real. You know, the Buddha said that in the supernormal reality, the second supernormal reality, normally called the second noble truth, but noble is not a proper word for Arya. Arya should be translated as supernormal, because everyone's living the normal life, and this is the supernormal teachings, supernormal practice. And the second supernormal reality is what is the cause of suffering, and the cause of suffering is the emotion and the personalizing. And because we take this process of perception, the picture that is constructed, we take it as real, we become agitated and emotional, and then we personalize it. And but if you comprehend what this process of perception, what is really occurring, then you can no longer get fooled by the picture. You won't personalize it. That's why.
Like, for example, like, let's say that you're driving to work in the morning, and someone cuts you off, and you get really angry, and then you become emotional, and next thing you know, like, your whole body becomes tense, and you become very aggravated.
Oh yeah, next thing you know, you're stepping outside and trying to fight the guy.
Yeah, so if you were just to change the way that you are experiencing that moment, and instead of taking it personal and decide that you have to react emotionally, instead of doing that, which is the average and the normal way that a human reacts, you can actually step back and look at the experience during that moment. Look at the experience as just an experience, as a sensation. And when you become aware of everything that's going on in your body, because biologically you're wired to react emotionally to these incidents or these situations, especially difficult situations where someone is interfering with your desires or
Mm-hmm.
your whatever it is you're trying to do or accomplish your goals, normally we react emotionally. We react.
Mm-hmm.
That means we don't even think about what we're going to do. We just do it.
Yeah, unconsciously.
Yes. And normally when we allow that to happen, it happens because we are not aware of our body and our mind and how they take over us. They take over and
Mm-hmm.
react.
Bhante Punaji called it hijack, getting hijacked.
Yes. So if you develop and you cultivate your mind, and which is what meditation helps you to do. It helps you to slow down your thought process, and it helps you to develop an awareness of your thought patterns. Not just your thought patterns, but even at the same time, your breathing patterns. Like, how deeply are you breathing?
Mm-hmm.
Are you breathing shallow?
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking deep breaths, shallow breaths? Is your body tense? Are your
Mm-hmm.
shoulders tense? You slowly develop an awareness of not just the breath, but the body as well.
Yeah, you're looking at the whole reaction of the organism.
Yes. So when you practice meditation, that is cultivating the mind. You are developing awareness of the mind and the body and how everything works in one moment.
Yeah.
At one moment.
Yeah, that's satipatthana right there. Satipatthana is fourfold. Sati means attention. Patthana comes from upatthana, which means tana means place, and upa means inside, placing attention inside. So the four satipatthanas, the four places you set your attention on, is kaya, which is the body, vedana, which is the feeling, chitta, which is the emotion, and dhamma, which here is the concept, the thinking. So you're becoming conscious of the reaction, starting with the body, then seeing how the body feels, and then seeing how you're reacting emotionally to that feeling, and then seeing how the thinking is what's causing that emotional reaction, how you're interpreting the situation.
Yes. So that means that if you practice meditation and you cultivate your mind, and you pretty much cultivating your mind means training your mind. You're training your mind to become aware of the moment, become aware of your thoughts, your thought patterns, your state of mind. Also, becoming aware of the breath and the body. Everything is connected. So if you're becoming aware of one thing well, you're slowly going to become aware of another and another. And the next thing you know, you're aware of your entire body, not just your mind, your breath, and your body.
Your whole experience.
Yes. So as you continue to practice meditation, and as you continue to develop your mind, it will become easier for you to become aware, to maintain an awareness constantly throughout the day, especially during moments of extreme emotion or activity.
Yeah.
Where it involves the emotions
Take over.
and the minds of several people, especially during heated arguments, for example, or things like that, such as the moments when you're cut off on the road, when you're on your rushing to work. So if you are cultivating your mind with meditation, instead of reacting to that emotionally, to the experience of being cut off, you're going to actually stop, and you're going to become aware of how your perception is making your body react. You'll become aware of your breathing becoming a little more shallow because your body's getting tense out of stress. You'll also become aware that your heart's beating a little faster because your adrenaline is going up. You're getting ready to fight. Your body's preparing for the fight or flight.
Yeah. When the fight or flight kicks on, it shuts off your digestive system. That's why your stomach hurts.
Yeah. And what else? You will slowly become aware of those things. So I personally have experienced this awareness because uh, I had to. I think I've told you I had to work with people who were applying for homeless programs with a in the
Yes.
welfare department. So I'm a social worker and I work in the welfare department. And I was working in one of the most challenging units of the entire department, which was one of the units where nobody wanted to go, and I was not aware of this at first. It was that was where I started off. I was brand new, so I didn't know anything else other than that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it till later on, that that's where nobody wants to go, and I slowly learned why.
Yes.
So, I had to deal with clients who had domestic violence, mental illness, and substance abuse.
Yes.
Uh, in their life. And when I had to evaluate them for eligibility for certain homeless programs, which pretty much what meant funds, money. It
Yes.
was these programs were basically their source of income, whether if they really were eligible or not. They would try to apply and see if, to attain those funds. And sometimes, whether if it was due to fraudulence or due to just them not meeting the requirements, I would have to deny them. And when I did that, I noticed that their emotional reactions would affect me,
Mm-hmm.
and I would become emotional, and I would feel their anger, I would feel their rage,
Mm-hmm.
and it would make me angry. My body would become tense, and my body was ready to fight, but
Yes.
I was not able to control it. I didn't know how to stop it. It would happen whether if I wanted it or not. My body would just react that way.
Yeah.
But once I learned how to meditate, I learned how to become aware of my breath and then my body, especially my stomach. Like I noticed that after practicing meditation, probably for like a month or two, I started to become more aware of my body, how my body reactions were changing to negative situations like that, where my clients would become emotionally reactive
Mm-hmm.
out of anger. And instead of reacting the way I normally would before I learned to meditate, I stopped to like breathe. I would focus on my breath
Yes.
while I was literally sitting in front of the client behind a booth, sitting down, listening to them after I had verbally stated that they were being denied for these reasons. I already knew what to expect. I expected an emotional reaction, which is exactly what I would get. But instead of reacting the way I used to, I would sit down and I would just like, kind of like in my mind, instead of focusing on the client, I was focusing inside my body
Mm-hmm.
and I was focusing on my breath. And I noticed, okay, I'm breathing faster now.
Mm-hmm.
My heart's beating faster. My stomach is getting tight. My shoulders are tense. My hands are tight. Like I'm getting ready, my body's getting ready to fight. So then I would let go and I would take deeper breaths because my breathing was becoming shallow. I would take deeper breaths and then I would relax my arms, my shoulders. And then because I was focusing on my breath, I was taking deeper breaths, slower. I was able to relax my body and remain calm versus allowing my body to take control emotionally and react the way it normally would, which
Yeah.
is through your flight body reaction.
Yep. You became conscious of the unconscious process that is always occurring, and that allowed you to have the mental strength to not get dominated by the emotions. The virya, mental strength.
Yes. And one of the most fascinating aspects of this experience that I've had multiple times is that because I remained calm, my clients, after having their little emotional spurt, they would become calm also.
Mm. They
And
got
then,
they got a contact high.
is that what you would call it?
Yes, that's the urban term, I guess.
Yeah, and it was just so amazing. Like my clients were being more respectful towards me. they were more relaxed. They were becoming more relaxed. It was amazing.
Yes, because usually, emotions feed emotions. And when you basically became a black hole for emotional energy where it goes and gets destroyed, where normally when
You know what that remember how I'm not sure if it was you or Bhante Sanatta described this scientist who would go to different temples in Asian countries, and they would take an MRI scanner, and they would scan the minds of monks during their
yes,
meditation. And that the monks, they once asked a monk, how would you describe, what are you thinking when you meditate? And one monk said, I breathe in a black cloud and I exhale a white cloud.
yeah, that was a Tibetan monk. And shout out to our friend and teacher Bhante Sanatta Vihari, the iconoclastic monastic on Instagram. And he's leading the charge of the true Dhamma in the Spanish world. So any Spanish listeners who want the real Dhamma, you can go to casadebhavana.com and get all the Spanish translations, the proper translations of the teachings of the Buddha from our friend and teacher Bhante Sanatta Vihari. But yes, you're right. That's exactly what is happening. So it's a good description of the neurological process of what's happening. And that's kind of what you did with these clients who were coming to you emotional, because these clients are basically in these funds that they're applying for is for their own survival. So
Yeah, it's the main way they know how to survive.
yeah, so
And
they're
they're
mhm.
going to be angry.
Yes, and their fight or flight instinct is kicking in. And when they interact with people, that causes the fight or flight instinct to be agitated and come up for the other individual, and then they start charging each other like a vicious cycle. The Buddha called it pono bhavika. When he described the tanha, he called it pono bhavika. Pono is kind of like again and again, and bhavika is coming into being. It's repetitive. It feeds itself. But when he came into contact with you, you know how to deal with this negative energy. And anytime we use negative, we're talking about emotional versus calm.
Toxic emotions.
Yep. So you know how to deal with that. By first, you take care of yourself by introspection and becoming conscious of the unconscious process so it doesn't get out of hand. Our Bhante Puniji always called it like having a pot on the stove when it's turned on and is boiling. You notice that it's boiling, so you turn off the fire, and then you just do your conscious relaxation techniques of introspective breathing in order to calm down and let the hot plate cool down. And because you're doing this now, those charged up emotions from your clients, they don't get bounced back, and so they start to dissipate as well. And
yeah, because they see that they're not receiving the reaction that they wanted out of me. I'm not giving them fear. I'm not giving them anger. So when they see that the way that they're treating me is not giving them the results that they want, they realize that they have no power over me, and then they let go.
Yep. Ram Dass, I know you've been reading his book recently. Shout out to Ram Dass, one of my favorite teachers. He used to say that, people take everything so seriously, and that's why they get all emotional. And he used to use a metaphor of a kid who's outside in the street with a ball looking for someone to play with him, but everyone saying, no, I can't go out there. And that's a simile for people who are emotional. And you were like the kid with the ball saying, come out and play. Like, come out and play. You don't have to be emotional. It feels good not to be emotional. Come out and play. So that was a metaphor he used to use. But
Wow.
that's wonderful. So your own job was a a testing ground for the Dhamma.
My job is my yoga.
Yeah, hey, that's another Ram Dass quote, That's good.
Yeah.
He called that
You know,
karma yoga. Go ahead.
I used to actually hate my job back in
Mm-hmm.
the day, but now I realize that this job has helped me so much because I was determined to grow from it. I was not going to allow it to break me down. I had to find a way to grow, to learn. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, if I don't figure out a way to improve my performance or to improve the way that I'm interacting with my clients, I don't see why I'm going to stay here. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
have to find a way. And then I had read about, well, not only that, but my personal struggles with depression and anxiety also
Mm-hmm.
were motivators, were what motivated me because I think everything was connected.
Yeah.
The job was stressing me out, it was making me depressed, and it was giving me anxiety because I knew that the way I was dealing with it was not efficient
Yep.
and it was making me suffer. So I had to find a way to make things easier for me. So I wanted to find skills that would help me deal with depression and anxiety in a natural way. And I had heard about meditation, and then I met my coworker, Selena, and she's the one who introduced me to the temple, and I'm just so happy I found the temple, and now I am very grateful that I had that job.
Yeah.
That I still have the job. I don't work with clients directly anymore, uh but yeah, I think that when it comes to anyone who has difficult jobs or challenging relationships at work, you can see them as an opportunity to grow and develop your mind
Yeah.
versus as, something you have to deal with. Look at it as something you can learn from.
Yeah. There's a famous book called The Obstacle is the Way. And that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, you can learn from everything that drives you crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why the first supernormal reality, the first noble truth, is realizing dukkha, like realizing that there's dukkha. And like for people who are living their life thinking that there is no dukkha, they're never gonna wake up because dukkha is what is like the alarm. Like we gotta wake up. So,
Life it becomes easier when you start to wake up.
mm-hmm.
So when I started practicing meditation and developing my awareness of the breath in the body, my life became easier. I
Yes.
de- I was able to manage my stress. I was not allowing clients to take control of my emotions, and my clients developed more respect for me because they saw that I was not an emotional fool and
Yeah.
I was not gonna let them control me.
Yep.
When someone sees they can't control you and that you fully control yourself and you maintain, your that you maintain professionalism
Yeah.
and that you, even after they treat you that way, they still continue to respect you, they start to develop respect for you as well.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
imagine me cussing you out and saying the most horrible things to you, insulting you, and then you just remaining calm and still continue to speak to me respectfully.
Yeah. That's
That would make me respect you because I would see that, you're not,
you have true strength.
yes.
Absolutely. The virya. You have true virya, strength.
Yeah. So that helped me to develop better relationships with my clients. Even the
Mm.
most difficult ones, the most challenging clients,
I'm
they
sure
slowly,
I'm sure they come and look for you now because they know you can handle them.
yeah, yeah, some of them. I actually had a client once. She came to visit me once, and I said, "Hi, how's it going? What's going on? What's the problem?" "Oh no, I just came to visit you. I just wanted to talk to you."
Mm.
"Oh." She's like, "I have no one to talk to. Like nobody listens to me the way you listen. When I talk to you, you listen to everything I say."
Yes.
So yeah, there's people who don't I think, remember how I told you that when you look into someone's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
it's a form of love?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when I practiced that with my clients, it made them feel respected and valued. And I realized that a lot of them don't have that in their own personal lives. They don't have people who really listen to them and look them in the eye and who really give them, make them feel like they are important, because they are, you
Yes.
know? So they would come and look for it with me because they knew I would not turn them away.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And there's something biological with that too. Like, um, attention makes us feel good. Getting attention, like, literally chemically makes us feel
But
good.
yes, so that is a very fascinating topic. I think that topic is really like makes you think about how we are programmed as biologically programmed as humans,
To be
human
social.
organisms. Like, what is it about someone looking you in the eye that makes you feel important?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe for one of the following episodes, maybe I can get some like clinical studies or neurological studies that can back that up with science. Um, but yeah, that definitely happens. That's what we get from our first. We get it from our family. First you get it from your mother. Ideally, if you're lucky enough to have a mother, that's why we're programmed to as children to look for a mother, whether it's biological or not. We're looking for a mother, someone to treat us good and with care and to give us the eye contact. Like I saw this study where the baby is playing with the mother, and then the mother stops. Her facial expression is like a dead expression, not moving at all, and stops reacting to the baby. And the baby starts getting really unhappy and starts crying. And then as soon as the mother starts acting normal again and giving him the attention, he gets happy again immediately. We're neurologically, biologically wired to get that. And most of our life, the Buddha is called the awakened one, the one who woke up. That means that normal people are asleep and we're going through our life asleep. And like one of our Kalyana Mittas, Fred, he always likes to bring up that when you're getting checked out at the grocery store, to look the clerk in the eye, and that's like a form of love and compassion. And like you're mentioning your own experience with your clients who can be difficult, even they appreciate this attention and love by just even looking them in the eyes.
You know what I think, Juan? I think perhaps it's likely that people who are difficult didn't really have that attention in their lives as children.
That's very true. Like I think of my father. He was a very difficult person. He was very difficult. Like I had a strained relationship a lot with him, but it wasn't until I came across the Dhamma and started practicing that our relationship started to change. And it was like I had more patience and more love for him when with the
Passion.
yeah. And I saw another side of my dad right before he passed away. I saw another side of him that I thought was really beautiful and sweet. And this guy was not no one would think that, except he did have like a compadre, a friend that gave him that attention. And I always was puzzled, like, wow, this person knows how to deal with my dad. But he was just very loving and attentive to him. So you may be onto something. And my dad he didn't have a great life. Unfortunately, their parents, gave him away to the grandparents to take care of him, while all the rest of his like 9 brothers and sisters got to stay with the parents. So he didn't have
Yeah,
he didn't have
that's a
that.
bad.
Yeah. And I remember growing up, he used to always ask me to kiss him on the cheek and ask me whether I love him or not, and I would always have to kiss him and tell him I love him. uh
You see, do you see that I mean, from everything you've described to me, I can see that your father, um, he he thought it was his fault
yeah.
that his parents gave him away. So he had that created trauma in not only mental but emotional trauma that he carried throughout his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So throughout his whole life, he thought that it was his fault, that there was something wrong with him, that he was unwanted and unloved.
Yeah, it could be, definitely. So that's why I remember there's this bhikkhuni. I homage out on, instead of shada, homage to this bhikkhuni. Her name was Bhikkhuni Chanda. She was like, when I first got into the Dhamma, and I met one of the Bhantes that came into my job, and then one of the Bhantes gave me the address to the temple, and I started going to the temple like a year later. I met this bhikkhuni in one of the retreats, and she used to tell me, she used to tell everybody, teach us that we should practice metta. And then she would always ask, like, why do we have to practice metta? And the answer was, because the world needs it. Simply, the world needs it. And it's true. There's many people out there that are hurt. They feel unwanted. They feel unlovable. And, you know, they may not, even from their family members and friends, they may not get this love. And, you know, it costs us nothing to give it. So why not pour it out? That's why the metta practice is called the one of the limitless meditations, because literally it's limitless. It costs us nothing, and it doesn't bound. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Oh, it costs us nothing, but it does so much for everyone.
Exactly. So nourishing. That's why the Buddha in the sutras, he talks about that you know how there's everyone believes in a creator God.
Yes.
There's actually, in the sutras, they talk about a Maha Brahma. Brahma means God with a capital G. There's Brahma, and then there's Devas. Devas are celestial beings, normally translated as gods, but they're really like angels or inhabitants of heaven. But there's like a Maha Brahma, you can call it the president of the universe. And the Buddha talks about how in order to become a Maha Brahma, you have to practice metta to the highest freaking level. So like the guy or girl who becomes Maha Brahma is actually the one that has the most metta, actually loves all beings like they are his children or her children. And that's how we have to practice. That's why the metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, the loving kindness, normally translated loving kindness, we call it universal benevolence or universal friendliness. Karuna is compassion. Mudita is called, normally translated as altruistic joy, but we can call it selfless happiness. And upekkha is normally translated as equanimity, but we can call it apperception. You're equanimous because you're constantly focused on the process of perception. You're apperceptive means perceiving the process of perception. And these 4 meditations are called Brahma Viharas, the dwellings of God, the godly dwellings, divine abodes, many translations.
Hold on. Karuna, mudita, upekkha, and what else?
The first one was metta.
Metta means love.
Loving kindness, but you know how love can be, now we use love for like romantic love, for family love. So
once you said it, that the way that we interpret metta is due to the way that the translators interpret the Pali.
That's right.
So I think you said that there should be a better word for it, that love isn't actually the best word for it.
Yeah.
Would you say compassion?
What was that? Would I say what?
Would you say that compassion is a better word for metta?
Some people will say that, and definitely some people will give that as the better translation for metta. But I like universal friendliness or universal benevolence. Benevolence means like goodness, and your or universal friendliness. It's like, it's the type of love like
or universal kindness.
You can call it universal kindness. Yeah. The Jesus Christ, or Jesus, the Christ was added to him. Jesus, he taught, love thy neighbor as thyself. That's the type of love that metta is. It's not a romantic love. It's not a family love. You don't love thy neighbor just because it's just your family. You love him as thyself. And, the Buddha, his description was love all beings in the same way that a mother loves her one and only child and would even protect that child with her life. That's what metta is.
Okay, and then the second one was karuna.
Karuna, which that one can be translated as compassion. And even Bhante Sanata Vihari likes to call it kindness sometimes, because metta is you're changing your thinking. Now you're not thinking just of yourself. You're thinking of all beings in the same way you think of yourself.
In order to think of all beings, you have to expand your mind.
Absolutely.
Your mind's perception. Like literally when I do metta, I visualize the world. Like when I'm doing metta, practicing metta, for once I've gone past, the city and the state and the country, then I go to the world, and I'm literally visualizing, as I have my eyes closed, and I am visualizing the planet Earth rotating in orbit in outer space. And then I'm saying, may all beings in this world, whether if they're small or large, visible or non-visible, human or non-human, known or unknown, may they all be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. May no harm come to them. And then now I'm visually imagining the entire universe, all the planets, and then I'm imagining the cosmos, which is basically just this vast nothingness of space with little dots everywhere, which are other planets. So I noticed that it helps me to expand my visual perception, like in an unlimited
capacity.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's why it's limitless.
Yes, and that really, not only when you practice that constantly, I've noticed this through my own experience. Through my own experience of practicing metta constantly on a daily basis, I feel that it has really helped me to develop this muscle in my mind where I can switch to this panoramic view of this vast universe, and then I can switch back to like just this smaller perception.
Yeah.
So I kind of am learning to train my mind to see the big picture and to see how everything is connected.
Yeah.
And not only in the universe and the cosmos, but even like in my city or in my state, everything is connected. Or even in my work environment, everyone is connected. Like you can't just be kind to the people around you. You have to be kind to everyone, because your kindness towards everyone around you will be, it's like a domino effect. It will make you influence everyone with your thoughts and your actions and your words.
It'll ripple into the universe.
Yes, your kindness towards people who pass by you just smiling and saying hello or good morning, that is going to be bounced off towards the next person they see. You affect everyone around you. All your actions, your thoughts, your kind words, your kind gestures, they affect everyone around you. Just like your negative thoughts, your negative gestures, your negative actions, they affect everyone around you, whether if you like it or not.
Absolutely. And so that is, you're talking about visualizing. That's important in the metta practice, because without visualizing, it just becomes a mantra, and mantras are not going to do anything. But when you visualize it, it actually affects your whole organism, because our mood comes from our interpretation, and our interpretation comes from our perception of an image and the words placed on that image. So we need that image in order to really affect our organism and get the full benefit of the metta. And So that metta is like the thinking, the mental capacity, the mental aspect of this Brahma Vihara, of the four Brahma Viharas, the four divine dwellings. And then it goes to Karuna. Karuna is where the action comes into play. So first it was the mental part. You're expanding your mind to limitless proportions. And then the Karuna is putting that mental state of mind into action. So I heard a good example once. One time at the Sarathchandra Meditation Center where we go, one of the Kalyana Mittas who go and practice, they were bringing up how they were with her friends at their friend's house, and the dog was very sick, and they were doing metta towards the dog in their mind. And then the daughter came home, and then the daughter went straight to the dog and started like massaging him and caressing him and giving him love in a physical way as well as the mental. And that's a good example of the difference between metta mentally and karuna, where you put it into action. And so karuna, because metta, you're expanding your mind. Now, as I am, so are others. And they are the same as I. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That's the metta. That's the loving kindness. That's the universal friendliness. And then it turns into karuna, the compassion. Now you're putting that perspective into action, and you're going the extra dimension. So Bhante Punaji used to call metta the depth perception, the depth dimension. It's like a deeper aspect.
I've never heard anyone describe it that way.
Bhante Punaji did, definitely. I've listened to thousands of hours. That's the only reason I can comprehend it. Because these four Brahma Viharas, these four divine dwellings, they're not different. They're just different angles and different dimensions of the same thing. So if the first metta is the mental aspect, and then the karuna is the
it's so metta is the mental aspect, karuna is the physical aspect, the action, right?
Putting it into action. That's right. And then and why are you putting it into action? Because now others
because it was first you thought of it.
You thought of it, and you were thinking, may all beings be happy, because first you start with yourself. May I be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. And then you say others, you want others. You're thinking of others as you are for yourself. So may all beings be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. And then you put that into action, because now you, just like you would want to help yourself, you want to help others. And when you do that, you truly become selfless. Because now you're not just thinking about your self-centered way of thinking. Now you're thinking selflessly, helping all beings, and actually doing it. And when you're actually thinking of all beings instead of just self-centered, and you're actually doing it, putting it into action, you actually attain the third aspect, the third dimension of the Brahma Viharas, which is mudita, the altruistic joy or the selfless happiness. You become happy based on this selflessness.
That is like the fruit of karuna.
Yes,
and metta.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's the pala, the fruit, and that's what mudita is, the selfless happiness. Because the only reason you're not happy is because you're self-centered. At the point you become selfless, there's no room for unhappiness. It's only happiness. So that's the third dimension of the Brahma Vihara, the divine dwellings. And then once you're selflessly happy, you don't care about the exterior conditions, the exterior circumstances. Now you're fully focused within, which normally that is translated as equanimity. Upekkha. Oh. Yeah, you're right. Upekkha. Upekkha is normally translated as equanimity. But you're really...
Hold on, you said that when you reach mudita, which is the fruit of compassion and loving kindness,
and means selfless happiness.
Yeah, you become so happy and peaceful that you are now only focusing on how good you feel.
And you're focused within, because you feel good. Because you feel good, you're going to be you have the mental happiness, and you're going to feel good physically, and that will allow you to focus fully within. Now you're not needing external conditions to make you happy and feel good, because you found a happiness that is limitless, because these four aspects are limitless, not just one aspect. They're all limitless. So the happiness is limitless that you're feeling. And because you have this limitless happiness, you're no longer worried or concerned about external happiness, finding happiness from the outside. So that means you can actually fully focus within. And by being fully focused within, you can actually truly observe and comprehend this process of perception. So that's the upekkha, which we translate our school, our way of understanding the teachings of the Buddha, is apperception. So perception means perceiving the object, which is normally outside. Remember that tat?
Yes. And apperception is perceiving the inner world.
Perceiving the process of perception. That's right.
Yeah. Yes. Perceiving the process of perception.
That's why in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is one of the Sutra on Loving Kindness that the Buddha gave, he gave that sutra to a bunch of monks who got scared out of the woods from the tree spirits, who wanted their trees back, because the monks were meditating under the trees in the wilderness. But the tree spirits wanted their home back, because they live in the trees. And so they got tired of the monks staying there, because they were going to stay there the whole rainy season. And so they started appearing as like corpses without heads, and they scared the monks away, and they ran to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, what happened? They told him, and the Buddha said, okay, this happened because you weren't practicing this teaching I'm going to teach you, which is metta. So he sent them back, and he gave them this discourse. It's a very famous discourse. Most temples will chant it. It's part of the 3 main chantings. And at the end, he says that...
Wait, what is it called?
Karaniya Metta Sutta. You know it.
Karaniya Metta Sutta.
Yes. And at the end of this sutra, he says that one who practices this way can attain the state of never being born into the womb again. Which,
wait, say that again?
One who practices teaching to the fullest depth, which means going through metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, one who practices this can reach the state where they are never born into the womb again.
What?
So that means you can wake up.
So you're saying there's different routes. There's different roads to reach the awakened state.
It's all within the supernormal Eightfold Path. But yes.
What I mean by different routes is I have heard that you can reach the state of being fully awakened through breathing meditation. And I have heard that you can reach it fully through metta meditation. And then I have heard that you can reach it through both of them together by practicing both. So I guess there's different paths you can do. Some people reach it through breathing. Some people reach it through metta. Or what do you think about that?
So both metta and breathing are a type of meditation called samatha, which is a tranquil meditation, to tranquilize the body, to relax the body. And when you calm the body and calm the mental activity, you can then correct your thinking, which is the vipassana, samatha and vipassana. So, and these are they're joined, because you can't have vipassana without samatha. You can't have samatha without vipassana. And so samatha is to calm the mental activity in the body. Vipassana is to correct your thinking process. And so, yeah, you can use different types of samatha, but it's only the beginning. You're both all. Remember, there's this the Sata Bhojangas, which is the 7 factors of awakening, the 7 steps to awakening. They end with upekkha. So it's interesting that the 7 factors of awakening end at upekkha, because upekkha, you perceive the process of perception, you comprehend the process of perception, and that's also what happens through the Brahma Viharas. The last step of the Brahma Vihara is the upekkha as well. So you're right, but it's simply pointing out that they're both samatha meditations, and to calm the body, you just give up emotion. They're both giving up emotion. That's how you get to nirvana is destroying emotion, eradicating it, becoming free from it, because it is the emotion and the personalizing that brings the dukkha, the suffering.
That is so fascinating.
Definitely. If you're not fascinated by the Dhamma, you're not practicing right. You haven't discovered the real Dhamma yet.
Do you think that's why I'm fascinated? Because through my practice, I have unraveled that it is true.
Yeah, you've gained conviction, because
Yeah, that's why it fascinates me, because I know it's true, because I tried it myself and it works. I mean, I'm not awakened, but I know that it has already shown I have seen the fruits in my own experience
yeah,
of practice. I
yeah,
have seen the fruits of my practice in my own experience.
absolutely. We all have problems. We have a problem, and people, they use this word truth. And in the history of philosophy, especially Western philosophy, there's a category or a class called epistemology, where they're trying to discover. It's all about knowledge and truth. And the Buddha, basically, they translate his teachings sometimes as a pragmatic philosophy, which pragmatic philosophy is saying that if there's a problem and it solves the problem, then that is true. And so,
If there's a problem and there's a solution that solves the problem, then the solution is the truth.
yes, and it is good. Truth and good is the same thing. And so we all have a problem, and if we want to know whether the Dhamma that we're practicing is the true Dhamma, the real Dhamma, then we got to see if it's solving the problem.
You got to try it out and see if it works.
Yeah.
If it works, it's true. And that's how I know. That's how I was able to understand that Buddhist. That's why. Okay. So remember how I told you after I went to the temple and I did my first meditation session?
Yes.
And after that experience, I felt like I had found a pot of gold.
Yes.
That's because through my first meditation session, I saw the results of how calm and how relaxed and how, like, my body, not just my body, my mind, I was able to stop my mind from racing. I was able to I actually stopped to cultivate positive thoughts through metta, and through the breathing meditation, I became so relaxed. I was actually able to, like, just be happy and peaceful and not have all these racing thoughts of negative experiences I've had in my past that are not even, important.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of focusing on, okay, I was able to focus on the present. I wasn't focusing on my negative experiences anymore, of how horrible my day was, or this or that, or how
You
this person yelled at me, or
you were
I was able.
becoming free.
Yeah, so when I saw how it changed the way I felt, that's when I saw the truth. I realized there was truth. practice.
Yep.
And it was like a pot of gold.
Yep.
It was valuable.
Yeah, that's why they call the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha the Tiratana, the triple gem, the triple jewel, the triple gem. Because there's nothing more valuable than the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha in the whole universe. Even if it rained gold, you wouldn't
Yeah.
you wouldn't quench your thirst. You wouldn't gratify your emotions.
No, nothing else was able to make me feel as peaceful as I did that moment. Nothing, not psychiatric medication, which I had tried. It didn't work. I mean, I think it helped, but it had all these side effects to it that really kind of, it kind of like just made things worse. So I, and then also like it was natural. It was all in my mind, and I was able to control my mind.
Yeah.
And that to me was it was such a relief to know that the control was in my mind all along.
Yes. You know, there's a it's hard to, I don't know what to call him, a philosopher, just a brilliant mind. His name was Robert Anton Wilson. I think I've sent you some of his talks. And
Yes, I'm talking about. You
he
talk about him all the time.
all the time, yeah. I have three main teachers before I actually met the Bantes, the monks. The three
Wait. I think I know who they are.
go for it.
Alan Watts,
Yes, first one.
uh, and Robert Anton Wilson,
Yes, that was the third one, but there's one in between.
Ram Dass.
Yes, that's correct. They each had a profound. They helped me transform my experience. They each had a crucial step. Alan Watts introduced me to the real Dhamma, the Dhamma where there is no existence, there's only experience. Ram Dass introduced me to putting this understanding, this comprehension into everyday practice. That's how he helped me. And then Robert Anton Wilson was laying the foundations of having a scientific, a psychological explanation for this experience, this comprehension, and this practice. And he once, I heard him describe Buddhism. He said, "I don't think Buddhism is I don't like to describe it as a religion or philosophy. I like to call it a series of psychological games to free yourself from your own compulsions."
Wait, that's described it?
That's how he described it. A series of psychological games to free yourself from your own compulsions.
That is such a great description. I've never heard anyone that
Yeah.
is like, it's like perfect.
Yeah, that's why he's a brilliant man. Even now, I still listen to him and never get tired. And I'm listening to a book of his right now on audio. They just
Oh yeah.
this February they just put it on audio.
Yes.
Yeah, how do you know? Did I tell you?
Yeah, you told me about him.
Yeah, Prometheus Rising.
Right.
Yep. And I just showed it to my coworker, and he's like, "That sounds like a science fiction novel." And I told him, "Yeah, it does, but it's only because the publisher did not put the subtitle that Robert Anton Wilson wanted. The subtitle was going to be How to Use the Human Nervous System for Fun and Profit." It's just teaching you how to use your own nervous system, which is what you've been experiencing through the Dhamma.
For fun and profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because once you learn how to control it, once you learn how to understand it and become aware, you become aware of how it works.
Yeah.
And if you know how your mind and your body works,
you can program yourself. He calls it meta programming. You program your systems.
And if you can program your systems, that means you can program your
reality.
Life. Yeah, you can change your life.
Yep. Absolutely. That's what the Buddha did. You know, he became the meta programmer. That's why right when he awakened, that night of awakening, he says that he's been traveling in this vortex of birth and death for many lives, looking for the creator. And and he hasn't found the creator, and it's painful to be born again and again. And then that was the first verse. The second verse says, I have seen you, creator. I have destroyed your ridgepole. I've destroyed your foundation. The emotional urge has ceased. The mind has stopped constructing. So he saw that he was the meta programmer. He was the architect. And he was able to reprogram his that's why Panya is comprehension. It's correcting your thinking. Because remember, mano pubangama dhamma, your thinking precedes experience. Your mano seta, your thinking leads it. Mano maya, your thinking creates it.
Well, it looks like we've reached almost 2 hours now.
Yes. So we didn't get to discuss the sutta, but we pretty much answered. This happens a lot, but we answered your question. You were asking about the mind created and the Pali for that. You said what that meant, and we learned mano means thinking, and maya means created. So
you know what I noticed, Juan?
What?
I noticed that when you speak the Dhamma, you are in how do you say it when you are
Akaliko?
When you are in the moment.
Yeah.
You are fully in the moment.
Yeah, fully in the moment. And that is akaliko, independent of time.
Hold on. There's you're in the flow. You're in the flow state.
The flow state, definitely. Because, there's nothing that brings happiness like the Dhamma. Nothing in this universe that brings happiness like the Dhamma. Why? Because the Dhamma brings freedom from unhappiness.
You know how I noticed that?
How?
Because you are so aware when you're discussing it. Like you notice when I don't remember the words. You notice when I do. You notice you're like very hyper aware when you're speaking the Dhamma.
That's true.
But I think that the fact that I'm able to recognize this and be aware of this in you is because I have learned to become aware of it in me.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to be this aware and this interested discussing Dhamma if someone doesn't have the same level of interest and awareness, So I definitely agree that it's in both of us.
Well, I guess we could probably talk about the sutta during our next podcast.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, especially that section. Maybe it'll give me some time to read it. I know you dropped it on me right before the podcast, but I love sutta, so I'll dig into it. And so this was an idea of yours, basically. You brought up not that long ago that we should record our conversations, because this is how it usually goes, except probably double the time.
We'll have like a 4-hour conversation about the Dhamma, and then I would be so fascinated that I would wish that we had recorded our conversation.
Yes.
And then I once said, Juan, we should start our own podcast one day. And I don't remember exactly how I said it.
Yeah.
But it became real now.
Yeah. And you have been practicing well. You've been, like you said, you're in the battlefield of work, and you're cultivating the Dhamma. So all your good deeds of making people feel loved, they resulted in this coming true. Your wish came true. And I'm sure it's going to help people, whoever listens to this. I'm sure they'll get something from it. So it'll be an investment. You'll continue to see good results from your good deeds.
Yes, the wise ones will recognize the value in the words.
Yes, sadhu. That's Vinyu Hiti. Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo. Sanditiko, Ehipasiko, Akaliko, Opanaiko, Pachatam Veditabo Vinyu Hiti. Will be experienced by the wise. Yes, absolutely. That's the salutation on the Dhamma, and the last sentence is basically what you said. And so yeah, thank you for starting this with me, Joanna. I'm sure we'll have plenty of more.
Thank you so much for being so willing to share your wisdom and your knowledge of the Dhamma, Buddhism, and Zen in general.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And really looking forward to our next podcast.
Wonderful. So I guess this my pleasure. Thank you for joining me, and I think I enjoy teaching you because you understand everything so quickly, and I'm sure you've been practicing the Dhamma and studying it for many lives. So this will be the end of our podcast. I just want to give a quick shout out to Michelle from Spain. She's the one that created the image that we're going to use. And she's always been helping me. So a lot of good merit will go to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle.
You got cut off. What did you say?
I said, thank you, Michelle.
Yes, I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that. So until next time, may you all be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. Thank you.